the American Indian Community Center, our board had our staff retreat there. Nice facilities, and it's totally been remodeled. They have barbecue. Go on down and check them out.
All right. So, that being said, welcome back, YouTubers. This is In the Northwest Native News. I'm your host, Jeff Ferguson, and we are back. It's a great day to be Indigenous. We have a lot of wonderful stories here. Sorry about the technical difficulties early on, but we have some great stories, and we're going to kind of keep things moving along. One of the things we wanted to mention really quickly, we have here in town, if you're going to be heading into Spokane, that's what we're talking about, the Ruby River Hotel. Now, we don't typically like to plug people on the Ruby here, but the reason we're talking about this is Jerry Dickers. He has the Ruby River Hotel here in Spokane. He's offering tribal rates, so November 27th to the 28th. If you book directly, they start at $69. If you dine and stay, you get a $50 credit at the Osprey, and they remodeled that. I heard the food's amazing. I think you got a chance to go down there and eat.
Yeah, the Ruby River is right downtown on Division on the river. It's beautiful. The view is beautiful along the river. Recently, the American Indian Community Center, we had our board and staff retreat there. The food is delicious. They have barbecue. And so I highly recommend, we all got to come out and do a little bit of shopping. Christmas is right around the corner, I'm told. And so I guess we better get after it and start getting some of the shopping done.
Yeah. So that being said, moving right along, we have posted episode 13 out of Arlee. We were fortunate enough to make it out there to the Arlee Powwow, and we got to see the Jingle dress dancers. It was pretty exciting. They had an Ironwoman Jingle dress contest out there, and they must have had probably 40 dancers out there to start with. In episode 13, we just do highlights. We don't do it in the entirety, but we leave a link to the entire dance-off, which we say 52 songs, or excuse me,
22 songs, 55 minutes.
55 minutes. And so, yeah.
I have to keep them straight.
Holy cow, 55 songs. Boy, they'd still be going. Hey.
Yeah. So, we're all missing the powwow scene. Yaman Suit is the drum in that episode. It's just amazing. You got the backup women singers standing right behind the guys on the drum. And it's just beautiful. Our heart is yearning for powwow. And so here's a little bit of our powwow fix with that Ironwoman Jingle special.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. At the end of it, we do an interview with the youngest competitor out there, Daviana Madera, who had gone 21 songs in 51 minutes. And I think it was 21. Or maybe, no, she did 19 songs in 51 minutes. And we caught up with her in Elmo when we got to go over to Elmo, and she gives us some insight on what it was like to be out on that floor with all of those iron women,
The big girls.
Yeah, an iron woman in the making. Pretty exciting.
And also in that episode, we have a short spot of the traditional round bustle, so you can see David Brown Eagle. And then there's just a large number of jingle dress dancer girls. Shout out to Sophie Turning Robe. And that's real exciting to see some of the powwow. We need to get our fix.
Yeah, definitely. So moving right along, here in Spokane, we had some things that have been happening, and this was something we covered a little bit earlier and have been working on. But Wistock Sway, it used to have a name of a U.S. Army colonel who was responsible for let's just say some horrific things. I don't want to acknowledge that name again. Mm-hmm. I want to go with Wistock Sway, and it was exciting to be part of that. We worked to get the ball rolling, and I know Margo took the ball and ran with it and was going with all sorts of people, but they ran this article in the Spokesman-Review. At the time when I downloaded this, within a day, it had been liked 1,200 times, and it had been shared a couple hundred times, but I was pretty excited to see that they ran that. We got some good coverage, and that meeting was that Monday night.
So Monday night, the Spokane City Council reviewed the issue. Previously, about a couple months ago, the Spokane Planning Commission had had a hearing regarding changing the name. They unanimously voted to change the name to Wistox Way and make that recommendation to the Spokane City Council. This was really a grassroots effort, natives and non-natives. There was an art build. There were projections on the courthouse, no honor and genocide, by one of our Hopi friends, Jacob Johns, and one of his counterparts. And then, we had a rally at the location, and a couple hundred people showed up. We started off our rally with horses, and we brought it up with Harleys. We had Coeur d'Alene's, Yakimas, Colvilles, Spokane's, just tribes from across the nation. But we also had our NAACP representatives, Muslims. There were Chinese professors from the Spokane Falls Community College and EWU. So it was really widely supported across all of the groups. It was just amazing. The Spokane Tribal Language House and Drums were there on site too.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. In this article, they talk about some of the things that happened. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. This is a direct quote. The Spokane tribe worked very hard to involve tribal elders and the tribes that were directly affected by the acts of Colonel George Wright, said Margo Hill, a member of the Spokane Tribe of Indians and proponent of the new name. Goes on to say that Wright led a violent campaign against indigenous people to suppress their resistance as white settlers spread across the land of the Yakima, Palouse, Coeur d'Alene, and Spokane tribes in the mid-19th century. The road will be named Wistox Way in honor of Wistox, a woman warrior and Spokane Indian who played a role in the resistance against Wright in 1858. Can you talk a little bit about what Wistox for us?
So Wistox was a Spokane Indian woman that was married to Qualshan. She was a daughter of a chief, and their union really solidified kind of the war structure. Tribes were very strategic in their alliances, and they also did that marriage within families. So Qualshan was a Yakima, and he came and he fought alongside the Spokane tribe. And Wistox, she rode right alongside her husband. She rode into battle and she rode into Colonel Wright's camp. When they began to commit some of the atrocities, she grabbed one of the knives and tried to bust her way free, and tried to get to freeing her husband. She got on her horse and threw her spear in the ground. Women warriors, they were on the battlefield. They picked up wounded soldiers and rode them back to the medicine tent. Yeah.
So you're trying to tell me that they're naming this road after this woman. Well, it's about damn time.
Yeah.
Hey, gosh, holy cow. When we look around at the patriarchal, the colonialistic mentality that's been here for hundreds of years, to have this happen is exciting. In the beginning of this episode, we talk about it's a great day to be Indigenous. There's so many amazing things going on in this country, and this is just one of them. This is a local one. When we look at a national level, things were happening. Columbus statues were toppling. We look at people like Deb Holland, and we look at Sharice Davis, that are out there at the forefront in D.C. working that end of it, and then we have something, and it's created this ripple effect. And this is what I mean by ripple effect. Within 24 hours of the city council announcing that here in Spokane, the Spokane County, they announced they announced that the Spokane County was renaming Hangman Valley Golf Course, which was part of that era. And this story ran on KREM 2 News. Spokane, Washington, on Tuesday announced that it would be renaming Hangman Valley Golf Course to Latah Creek Golf Course. The County Department Board of Commissioners unanimously voted to the name change, according to county spokesperson Jared Webley. The decision came after several months of meeting and deliberation between the Golf Advisor Committee, where they followed a very intentional process to consider historical and or cultural significance of a property, according to Webley. So that is exciting. So it's one thing, and then we're seeing these ripple effects or butterfly effect, whatever you want to call them, that have been happening. And it's really, really exciting. So that being said, one thing I've been forgetting to mention, we would like to have a name for our morning show other than the morning show. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something like Teepee Talk or anything like, or Tulimat Talk. But if you guys have any suggestions, if you have any suggestions for a new name, be sure to put them in the comment section below, and we'll just keep working on that. So another thing we've been trying to keep an eye on, I've got a day 5 now since they announced that the first vaccines were released in the United Kingdom. We got them over here in Seattle, I think, was it yesterday? Not here in Seattle, but we got them over there in Seattle. Here in the state of Washington, I think it was yesterday. So we're going to keep an eye on that to see how long before we get our frontline IHS workers and people in Indian country that need them before we get the first vaccine. So anyhow, moving right along. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm excited. We were out delivering beadwork and picking up beadwork, so I didn't get the latest on that last night. Talking to reporters and stuff, but I'm excited for the vaccine. I have little yayas that I haven't been able to visit. My niece's kids, and I haven't been able to visit the little ones, and so it's been this COVID is a real challenge.
So, with COVID, it's changed a lot of different things, and one of the things we want to do real quick is we here from the Spokane tribe, we have a quick shout out. We have, you can see him on the far right there. We had Casey Winecoop got to be part of this. Changer adapts Coast Salish and Dakota origin stories into a radio play. Now this ran in the Seattle Times. I was pretty excited about that for Casey and his crew. I know that Fern Renville was a big part of this. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know you got to read a little bit more into that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so they were doing original origin stories. Some of our tribal stories. Casey was playing the coyote, and they had a beautiful script and a lot of work. I think Lower Elwha was involved at tribal members, and this was going to be a theater production. But because of COVID, they've had to take this to a radio show. And so they've done a really good job in taking some of these origin stories and making a script and bringing it live on the radio.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see. It says they had, like you said, the Lower Elwha, which is one of our tribes from the western side over on the peninsula. It says the set designer, Tomer Peterson, had even planned on using real materials on the set, like a canoe on loan from the Tulalip tribe, and fresh kelp and seaweed from Tulalip Bay to bring in the smell of the ocean. That would have been really exciting, but they, because of COVID, they had to adapt, and a lot of us are adapting. And I think it's pretty neat to be able to see this and keep people, in a positive. This too shall pass. This isn't something that's going to dictate the rest of our lives. It's just taking a little bit longer to get a grip on it than I think we initially thought. But this is a really cool idea. I know Fern is an amazing woman, and Casey, I really want to check this out. This is exciting.
So look for The Changer. It's a radio play, and you should be able to find that. We'll go ahead and leave the streaming link to it in the comments below. So look for that. The season changes and the star people. So look for that play.
Yeah, we'll definitely leave the link for that. So moving right along. Quick shout out to another amazing Native woman, Patsy Whitefoot. They showed her with the Washington electorals casting votes for Biden and Harris. And they showed her in the Spokesman-Review. If you don't know Patsy Whitefoot, she's an amazing Yakima woman that has been involved in education for, golly, I think she told me 35 years or something like that. I got the opportunity to interview her for Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians. I guess it's been a couple years now down in Portland, but man, gosh, somebody who has, her heart is all in for Indian people. It's really neat when you get a chance to meet people like that. Super exciting. So shout out to Patsy Whitefoot, but I know she was, well, I'll let you talk about, we'll move into the bigger picture stuff, but I want some comments. What's your experience been with Patsy?
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Electoral College.
Sure, we'll move into that, but what's your thoughts on Patsy?
Oh, Patsy is
Patsy.
amazing. You know, Patsy is from the Yakima Nation. She's a tribal elder that, walks her talk. She has been an educator for 30, 40, 50 years on the Yakima Indian Reservation. She, during this time of COVID, she's got her grandchildren that she's homeschooling right in her home today. She also has the Little Swans. Her and some of her counterparts are helping, bring up young Yakima girls in the Yakima culture. And the Little Swans are they dance, they sing, it's amazing. So we admire Patsy a great deal.
One of the things that Patsy's been working on very passionately also is the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement. I know that she's been really involved in that too. So
yeah, Patsy helped get legislation. Her sister actually went missing 30 years ago, and so and Yakima County has one of our largest numbers of murdered missing Indigenous women and people, and so she's been a strong advocate and helped get legislation passed right here in Washington.
Yeah, she's exciting. She makes me smile. Even just hearing her name makes me smile because I know where her heart is. And she was just, when I interviewed her, she was just really warm-hearted the whole time. So that was really exciting. So moving right along to your national level stuff, Native electors help seal Biden win. Now I know that you know a little bit about this, but I see that they have some pretty heavy hitters in there. You're looking at the Gila River. The Gila River governor is in there.
Yeah, so the Electoral College formally chose Joe Biden and Pamela Harris on Monday as part of the nation's next presidential ticket. Looking at the news coverage from Indian Country Today, they gave them a solid electoral majority of 306 votes. At least 8 of those people were Native, Indigenous people across 3 states. And they cast their electoral votes in favor of Joe Biden. In Arizona, 3 of the state's 11 electors were Native. The Gila River Indian Community Governor Stephen Lewis, Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez, and Tohono O'odham National Nation Chairman Ned Norris Jr. So that was really exciting to have that tribal delegation. But I will mention, Jeff, right here in the state of Washington, 2 of the 12 electors were Native American. Native American Caucus Chair Julie Johnson, Auntie Julie we call her, from the Lummi Nation served as electoral vote, and Native American Caucus member Patsy Whitefoot from the Yakima Nation. They cast their votes.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I got to meet Julie Johnson down there at NCAI when I was down there with Yvette Joseph last year, and I got to meet Julie, and what an amazing woman. Another amazing woman.
I teach tribal governance at Eastern Washington University, and I actually had Julie Johnson come and speak to my class about elections and natives and the vote, get out the vote. And then I also had President Stephen Lewis from the Gila River Indian Community visit with my class. These tribal leaders are so busy, but they are gracious with their time when it comes to the next generation.
Yeah. So moving right along, we have had some issues here, and this is kind of an exciting story in a few different ways, but this is what I saw. This came out in the Spokesman-Review, and by the way, the Spokesman-Review has been doing a lot of Indigenous stories, a lot of things. I know they had that new reporter that they hired to cover, I guess, multicultural or...
Well, actually, they just got the funding for that position, and they're looking to hire. So if anybody out there knows folks that could cover issues for people of color, be sure and inquire about that job. It should be posting. Yeah,
so that's exciting. They have stepped their game up a little bit, and it looks like they need some help. But this story is from the Coeur d'Alene tribe. Again, it ran in the Spokesman-Review. Coeur d'Alene tribe races to connect citizens to internet before deadline Congress has failed to extend. When Valerie Fasthorse became the Coeur d'Alene tribe's IT director in 1999, she said people couldn't even get dial-up internet connection on the reservation. Fasthorse worked for more than 2 decades to connect residents of North Idaho Reservation to the internet, starting the tribe's own internet service provider, Red Spectrum Communications, which now serves the majority of households. But the arrival of COVID and the shift toward online life exposed the need to upgrade aging infrastructure of the bandwidth required for work, school, and doctor's visits for home. And in March, the federal government passed $3 trillion in CARES Act money, a relief package that sent $150 billion to state, local, and tribal governments to cover costs related to the pandemic. Idaho Commerce Department passed on more than $2 million of that money to the Coeur d'Alene tribe as part of a $49 billion broadband grant program. And that federal funding has to be spent by December 30th. And in order to get that up and going, it's created an influx. So what's happened is, with all these people needing broadband now, all these reservations and rural communities, the companies that typically do the installations on that have just been slammed. And so Fast Horse goes on to say in this article, she says, we're struggling. We're just really on the edge here. And this was on the 14th. Their deadline was actually set for the 15th for them to get these contracts going, and money had to be spent, so they had to be paid out by December 30th. And so on that, she says, we're just really on the edge here. We think we're pushing the 15th. So on the eve of the deadline, which would have been the 14th, the department granted a last-minute extension until Friday. Now Fast Horse and her team are racing to connect as many families as possible. It goes on to state that Fast Horse said that one of the broadband companies, it says the tribe received grants for 3 projects, but only 2 got off the ground after contractors suddenly busy amid a glut of broadband projects around the state told Fast Horse the other project would be impossible to finish by the deadline. The project, she said, would have connected 163 homes and improved service for 7 more. The deadline is what scared a lot of them away, is what she says. One said, even if there's an extension, if there was an extension, they put a bid on the contract, but they just couldn't do it right now. That's just, and we're seeing that all over the place, where these people that do that type of work, they're swamped, and it's not just the installers of broadband. It's also stretching into people like carpenters and plumbers and electricians and all these different things. But that's what happened on the Coeur d'Alene res. It's a good article, so we'll leave a link on that.
And so it really goes to show that we have to do our planning. When projects are shovel ready, then we have a greater likelihood to have them ready to go when the funding becomes available. Often that's what happens. Funding becomes available for a short and limited time. That's happening at tribes across the Northwest. I know that some tribes were having to turn the money back to the Department of Revenue. So when you are out there, planning is important. Of course, I'm a professor in urban and regional planning, and so I believe in the importance. But if you have planners that are penciling out the projects and making it so the infrastructure, when the funding comes, it's ready to go. Shovel ready is the way to go.
And when we talk about shovel ready, good example of that real quick is the Spokane tribe put together their cozy, the
solar panels.
Yeah, the solar panel, the solar panel initiative that they did with Wells Fargo. Now, this is a $5 million project that was shovel ready, and when Wells Fargo announced that they were going to give $50 million to Indian country, the Spokane tribe put in for that and got 5 of that $50 million. And so they had a big celebration out there on the res. And the lady that represents indigenous communities to Wells Fargo came out and gifted the tribe, and it was a big deal. But it all goes back down to planning. And so, and it's a combination of things. It's not just the planning, but also a big part of that, it goes back to, like we were saying in earlier episodes, elections. When you get out there and vote, and you vote for people on a local level that are non-native allies and get them in positions of power, then we can get the ball moving, and then we can get things going. And these are some things that got going. So, moving right along. Speaking of the Spokane,
when we talk about internet, yesterday on the front of the newspaper, also the Spokesman-Review ran a story about the internet challenges, the digital divide in Indian country, and the challenges that our students and our teachers face.
Yeah, so the article, it's entitled, "Despite Internet Challenges, Teachers, Parents, and Students on the Spokane Reservation Go Extra Mile to Make Remote Learning Work." That's what the title of the photograph says. But they go on and they talk about how difficult it's been for rural communities, and this particular one is on the Spokane Reservation, and how they're having to use paper packets and hand deliver them and hand deliver lunches out because without internet access, these kids have to, they have to keep up with their curriculum, and they have to keep up with their studies. And without having, they were saying on the Coeur d'Alene res, they couldn't even get dial-up. And I know on the Spokane res, some of them are pretty rural, and the dial-up is so slow. If you can imagine not being able to maybe check your email and your Facebook at the same time, or not even be able to load a Facebook page. That's crazy. The federal government stepped in Congress, passed the $3 trillion. Spokane invested $4.7 million in broadband project, and things are moving along. They got the jetpacks and all sorts of stuff out there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a shout out to not only Wellpinit teachers, but our teachers that drive out to our reservations every day or live on the reservations. They are having to do paper packets, and then they record their Zoom lectures, record them, put them on a thumb drive, and then send them out to the kids that don't have internet. That's a lot of extra work. I'm an educator, and it's really hard just to have your curriculum, and ready to go and teach it, let alone recording it and thumb driving it and getting shipped out and keeping track. There's 400 kids in some cases, double that in other places, and so it's really hard on our education system, and it's hard for our kids to learn in those kind of environments.
It's really taken this stuff. COVID stuff to it's a whole nother step beyond online learning, because as educators you're forced from the coronavirus to move into online education, and then when the online education isn't working, then you're forced to do your curriculum all over again, and the kids are forced to try to keep up with all of this stuff. It's hard enough trying to do it in a normal school, and then much less online, or much less with these paper packets, and maybe if you get a little internet access through online or through a jetpack. I know the jetpacks are still spotty. They're still working on. I heard they got a couple towers up there on the Spokane res, so that's really exciting. We'll leave the link in this article in the Spokesman-Review in the comment section below. So.
Yeah, we had families, the older brother taking the little brother and sister up to the Powwow grounds just to get a little bit of internet connection. But hopefully we get those 2 towers up, and hopefully these vaccines start rolling down in Indian country.
Yeah, well, hopefully. We'll see. Moving right along, we are doing a quick shout out to Chad Yellowjohn. He's one of our tribal members that is an artist who is a graduate of the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, and he has got political influence in his art. And I saw this one popped up on his Facebook page the other day, so I just wanted to share this one. It's called Eat Poo, Chief Wahoo. And if you notice, it's kind of got the Chucky theme going on, and it's got Chief Wahoo, and he's got the scissors out, and he's going to put an end to him. And for those of you that may not have heard, the Cleveland Indians announced that they would no longer be using their racist mascot. And this is something that has been in the works for literally decades. There was an article that ran. This article here was from the Time Magazine. And I'm pretty excited that they ran it in Time Magazine. Cleveland baseball team reportedly dropped Indians name after 105 years. That's a long time. 105 years. Could you imagine what an institution that they've created around this racist mascot? But it's change, and these kind of things again goes back to non-native allies, and it goes back to the resilience and the persistence of Indian people. And amidst the COVID, we've been able to do a lot of things. It's kind of crazy how many things have been able to be accomplished just this last year. This article goes on, and it says that citing 3 people familiar with the decision, the New York Times reported Sunday night that the team is moving away from a name considered racist for decades. The Indians have been internally discussing a potential name change for months. And so this actually ran in the Associated Press, and I wanted to show too that it wasn't just there, but it was also it made it into this New York Times, and just made it all over the place. And so it's positive movement.
Right. It's controversial. We are not mascots. Sometimes we take pride in if there's Indians or some mascots that proudly represent our people. whether it's the Spokane Chiefs or the Spokane Indians. But the problem is that some of these ball clubs really have mascots that are offensive, and then their fans, think they can wear headdresses and war paint and make noises, and that's really not our culture, or it's not. It's cultural appropriation, and it feels mocking. So it ends up being really offensive to us if folks didn't try to dress up and be those things. Then I don't think it would be such a hard issue for us, but it is because people don't treat us very well.
And it's been that way for a long time. We're talking 105 years. I read an article. I was going through some archives a while back, and this was maybe 5 years ago. I saw this article, and it ran. I think the newspaper was out of San Francisco, and it was about 1920, and they were still offering. They offered $5 for a native Indian scalp, $10 for a native woman scalp, and $20 for a male scalp. And it was an advertisement in the paper in California for these, and that was just now about 100 years ago. So the mentality has changed, but if you look at a bigger picture, there's a lot of things that can change, and the Cleveland Indians having that happen. We also had the Washington Redskins this year, which was really exciting. So the ball is moving in the right direction, and it's been equated a lot of different ways. But I think the person that summed it up best for me, we got the opportunity to go down last September to Santa Fe, and we met with this amazing woman, Charlene Teeters. She's a Spokane tribal member. She's an artist. She's an activist. She's the former dean of students at the Institute of American Indian Arts. She's a Spokane tribal member, and she tells a story of what got her into this. She actually led the fight back in the late 80s and early 90s against racist mascots for professional teams. She worked with Dennis Banks and Clyde Belcourt and Gay Kingman. We got to meet Gay Kingman down at NIGA down in San Diego a couple years ago. Another amazing woman. But Charlene Teeters worked with these people, some of the AIM founders with the National Congress of American Indians, and went around to the stadiums to protest all of these different racist mascots. 30 years ago she was doing this. She was fighting the fight, and one of the stories that she tells, we have episode 14 that's coming up. It'll be online here in about 20 minutes, and it's an amazing interview. She gave me a solid hour, and she tells the story of how she went from going to Illinois to get a MFA in art. So she was a local native artist who had been to Institute of American Indian Art. She went with George Flett and George Hill and those guys. She refers to them as her colleagues. So she talks about her colleagues. So she goes from there. She goes to Illinois to get a MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts. And when she got there, she realized what a racist environment that was built around the university's mascot. She tells a story of going into this one bar where the fraternities gathered, and there was a neon sign of a drunken Indian falling down over and over again. And it's just a really heart-wrenching, heart-filled interview. I've done hundreds of interviews, and this is probably, I would say, this is top two. This is at least top three, probably top two interviews I've ever done. And I've interviewed some pretty heavy hitters, and she's just amazing. But she tells a story going to get that MFA, the experience that she did, what led her. Because before that, her art wasn't political. And so that's what changed her, and she got into political art, and she ended up getting her MFA, and she tells the story of going through that, working with Dennis Banks and working with Clyde Belcourt and those guys, going around to the different stadiums, all of the confrontations that they had with SWAT teams and protesters and the team owners and all that. And she talks about what it's like as an Indian student, as an educator doing this, what it's like as a mother to experience that, have your children experience that. She says that when she got into that fight, she was thrown to the front lines, and she was getting all sorts of horrific mail and packages and phone calls and all. She tells that story. She opens her heart to me. It's an awesome story. If you don't watch any of our episodes, watch episode 14. You won't regret it. Definitely. It's exciting, and it'll be up online here in about 20 minutes. So
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Charlene Teeters. You know, she's an amazing, as you mentioned, dean of IAIA. You know, Jeff and I travel a lot, and we had the opportunity to go down there and visit the Indian school, the Institute of American Indian Arts. We highly recommend, if your children are artists or if they're writers, go check it out. It's a beautiful campus. You know, in fact, Jeff, we'll have to show some pictures of the campus and tell you maybe a little bit about their program. You know, we're all about education here at Inland Northwest Native News, and I'm really looking forward to that interview with Charlene. You know, we've done some interviews, and we have more coming. So we were real excited to finally get out the Ironwoman jingle dress and the interview with Daviana, and then now Charlene. I mean, the hits just keep coming. You know, we've got more stories coming up with Francis Ald, Indian ventriloquist, one of our tribal Kootenai elders up at Elmo. And so there's just lots of great things happening in Indian country. I know we're on lockdown just a little bit longer, and hopefully those vaccinations will be coming out.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention just real quickly. I showed this earlier. This Chief Wahoo. So this again was Chad Yellowjohn. We'll leave the link to his website in the comment section below. But I wanted to bring that up because Chad was a student of the Institute of American Indian Arts, and he was there when Charlene was there. And I'm almost certain that she had some influence on his work going political. And he's got some amazing political art. If you check out his website, if you go back into our YouTube channel and look back, we did an interview with Chad Yellowjohn, and he highlights a bunch of the work that he did, and the piece that I got from him, that you got for me from him, is in there, and it's definitely worth checking out. So there's a link to that. I don't have if you look in I do have the link to his website, but if you check out in the YouTube channel, back in the archives, I think it's like episode 4, it's one of the early ones, we do a good interview with Chad Yellowjohn. He talks about that and what it's like to go to IAIA. So
I don't know if you have any more stories, Jeff, but we'd like to give a shout out to Francis Cluya. It's his birthday today, and I know, Jeff, he's one of your special friends. He gifted you a bustle. You know, why don't you give a birthday wish to Francis Cluya?
Oh man, happy birthday, Francis! What a blessing to have a man like you in all of our lives. You know, we worked on the Prairie Chicken special. So I don't know if you got a chance to see that online. There was a contest, and me and I did the Calcutta for him live down at Northern Quest in the back theater there. But Francis and Davy Madeira, and Tawny. So we all worked on this together, and that was really exciting. So every time I get a chance to spend some time with Francis, it's time well spent, man. So happy birthday. Thank you again for my eagle bustle. I couldn't have asked. Here, give you a quick story. I asked Francis, I said, Francis, I want to start dancing, and I don't have a bustle. Can you help me round up some feathers? And so he thought about it, and I ran into him, and he didn't say anything, and I ran into him again, and he still didn't say anything. And it must have been like 6 months later or something. We ran into him up at the Powwow up in Usk on the Kalispell Res, and he said, I want to talk to you. I've been thinking about this, and I got this old eagle bustle that I want to gift you. And it's exciting because it was a champion dancer's bustle it was the inner bustle. So there was a champion dancer by the name of Wally Paul back in the 70s. I think Francis said he got this bustle gifted to him. It was the inner bustle of Wally Paul's double bustle. Wally Paul gifted it to him in like 1973 or 74, and then Francis turned around and gifted it to me. What an honor. Happy birthday, Francis, man. I really appreciate that, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to get to see you soon, man. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I have the outro ready.
All right. Well, that being said, we are going. I think that's it. Thank you once again for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, real quickly, we had we had a suggestion from Danielle. Shout out to Danielle. Thanks for chiming in. She says, I always liked moccasin telegraph. Maybe in the Salish language. Maybe we get that translated. That could be, we could get that. So we're still looking for names for our morning show. So shout out to Danielle. Thank you. So with that being said, tune in. We'll be in on Friday. We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, Sha Uhoy.
Oh,